Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Karthikeya Sharma. Today we have 3 on points lined up for you. In On Point 1, US-Iran talks are in limbo, Swiss negotiations are cancelled and Lebanon is still burning despite MoU. Is this peace framework still alive or has the first track already become a collapse despite announcement of ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel? In On Point 2, India's monsoon has stalled after an early start, but El Nino is not the only culprit. From weak bay lows to dry winds in the Pacific pullback, we decode 5 reasons why the rain march has hit a wall. In On Point 3, India's BrahMos is no longer just a missile, it is becoming a multi-platform strike weapon for land, sea and air and undersea warfare. As India and Russia plan smaller and hypersonic versions, is BrahMos now India's ultimate deterrence weapon? Now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Over 1,600 errors found in Odisha's government textbooks from classes 1st to 8th. Errors include Sir Isaac Newton being described as a pilot. Chief Minister Mohan Manji orders strict action against those responsible. Tamil Nadu CM Vijay moves resolution in State Assembly against Karnataka government's proposal to construct Mekedatu Dam on Kaveri River, urges centre to advise Karnataka government not to undertake the construction of the dam. Big win for centre as Delhi HC upholds centre's temporary ban against the app and dismisses Telegram's petition. Outgoing US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announces release of never before seen documents on COVID-19, claims that the former US Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci tried to hide the truth about the pandemic. The US-Iran MoU was supposed to open the door to a final peace framework. Instead, before the first technical round could even begin, diplomacy has run into its first major roadblock. The Switzerland talks are off for now, and both Washington and Tehran are already testing each other's commitment. But remember, just 24 hours ago, Washington was still sounding confident. US Vice President J.D. Vance had suggested that the process was on track, that diplomacy still had room, and that MoU could move towards implementation. Before we explain why that optimism may already be fading, let's play out what Vance said.
Frankly, not what the Iranians want, it's not what the Omanis want, it's not what the GCC wants either. So what we're going to do, of course, working with our allies in the region, is to ensure that that is reflected in the final deal. And if that's not reflected in the final deal, there's not going to be a final deal. I plan to go to Switzerland. Exactly when, we think these technical negotiations are going to start sometime this weekend. That's still the plan, but that could change because it's not an easy country, Iran, to get out of. And so we're trying to figure out exactly when that's going to happen. I suspect this weekend, but I'm not sure.
That was Vance sounding hopeful, but the latest tells a very different story. He's not traveling, Iran's delegation is holding back, and the Switzerland talks are off for now. So within 24 hours, the tone has changed from optimism to uncertainty. Bergenstock, which was expected to become the next diplomatic stage for the US-Iran process, is now waiting with bated breath. The meeting rooms may be ready, the mediators may be on standby, but the two sides are not yet ready to sit across the table. The White House says technical talks can begin soon, but Tehran wants visible implementation first. Lebanon was a breaking point of the MoU. The deal calls for a halt to military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, but fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continued. Reports says Hezbollah attacks killed Israeli soldiers, while Israeli retaliatory strikes in Lebanon killed at least 18 people and wounded 33. But there is a breakthrough. That is, Israel and Hezbollah has agreed to ceasefire starting 4 p.m. local time Friday. However, Iran enters this phase with pressure but also with leverage. The MoU has opened the door to sanctions relief, frozen funds access, oil waivers, and a longer negotiation window. At the same time, Iran is not giving up its nuclear and missile cards immediately. Tehran's message is clear: if the US wants compliance, it must first show guarantees. But now that position has been made even clearer from Tehran's highest office. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, in a message to the Iranian nation, has welcomed the agreement reached between Iran and the United States to end the conflict in West Asia, but he also made it clear that He has reservations about the deal. The full text of the message issued in the name of the Imam Sayyid Mujtaba Khamenei, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, shows that Tehran is backing the MoU publicly but not blindly. It is support with conditions, support with caution, and support with pressure on Washington to deliver. This is why Iran may use the postponed talks not as a setback but as a bargaining power. For Donald Trump, the MoU is both a diplomatic gamble and a political risk. The US wants to claim open the peace. They want to claim that they have been able to bring order to West Asia, reopen Hormuz, calm oil markets, restart nuclear negotiation. But if Lebanon burns, Washington's credibility will be questioned. Can Trump pressure Israel to respect the peace process? Can he convince Iran that the deal will be implemented? And can he sell this agreement at home when critics say Iran has been given too much too soon?
The one thing that's happening that's of note, frankly, the only thing that really matters to me, is Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And it says it loud and clear. They're not going to develop it. They're not going to buy it. They're not going to do anything with it. And if they do, they suffer unbelievable consequences. But the biggest thing is they will not have a nuclear weapon. And that's the reason I got in. And that's the reason I agreed to sign. If they do, all hell will rain down on them.
So the MoU stands at a dangerous crossroads. If Switzerland talks resume quickly, the deal survives its first shock. If Lebanon escalates further, the 60-day window may collapse before real negotiations begin. Now on this issue, I'm joined by Raja Karthikeyan, West Asia expert, fellow adjunct Takshashila Institute. I'm also joined by Professor Scott Lucas, International Politics, Clinton Institute, University of College of Dublin, and Itai Madiana, Director of IDSF, National Security Policy Institute. I thank all of you for joining me. Let me first go to Professor Scott Lucas. Sir, is Lebanon in future going to be the big issue, sir?
Oh, Lebanon is already the big issue. What has happened in the past 24 hours is that Iran is effectively saying to the United States, look, if you want talks to develop this memorandum of understanding, then Israel has to call off its attacks in southern Lebanon. That is why all of a sudden, with the Americans, including Vice President J.D. Vance, almost on the runway to take off for Switzerland this morning, they got called back. Now, I'm not saying that the Trump administration will accept that Iranian demand, but what the Iranians are already seeing is that the Israeli attacks on Beirut, two of which took place in the last 11 days, and jeopardized the memorandum of understanding. They've widened the split between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu personally, and they may have widened it between the administration and Israel. I still think this winds up with the Israelis establishing a zone of occupation in Lebanon, probably about 10 kilometers deep. But to establish that zone of occupation, they have got to stop the widespread airstrikes that we are seeing, because it's not just Hezbollah getting killed in these strikes, it's civilians getting killed on that. And Iran's going to exploit that issue. They are going to play up this idea that they are defending the victims in Lebanon and that a deal is necessary for the sake of those people in Lebanon, as well as for U.S.-Iran relations.
Okay. Let me go across to Itai. Itai, when I interviewed Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azza, he told me two things very, very categorically in my interview. First thing, he said that the national security of Israel will not be compromised. We will stay inside Lebanon till we think it is important for us. That's number one. And secondly, he said that the world needs to take cognizance of attacks that emanate from Hezbollah. Now at 4 p.m. local time, the ceasefire has been announced. Will it endure, sir?
Well, I think that we should remember and remind everybody what was the cause of all this campaign, let's say military campaign against Iran. It was for three main aims. It's actually to remove strategic threat coming from Iran, the conventional one, the non-conventional one. It was on their ways, and of course all what started, all this point, it's actually a blow of terror state, sub-states attacks from the south of Israel by Gaza and then continues by Hezbollah in the same day. What what the Iranians did is that they took another issue and created a crisis in the Hormuz Straits in order to raise it as the main problem and to solve the main problem, which is Hormuz. But in fact, we didn't, and the Americans as well, and together, we didn't launch those operations against Iran or against Hezbollah for the Hormuz Straits. We did it in order to remove a nuclear deal, a nuclear project that was far away for a few months before getting into capabilities of creating a nuclear device, not a fissile materials, but a nuclear device. And the other thing is to remove the production of thousands of missiles that each of them has accuracy of 5 meters that hit any target in Israel, civilian or infrastructure, and there are thousands of that before the war, and they intend to reduce more than that to get to the level that we cannot stop. So together, so those were the main two targets of Israel and the United States while opening this war and campaign against Iran from a military point of view, and of course, from epic fury to epic economy, to economic fury. And what Iran's will to do right now is only two things. First, to remove the blockade, the economical blockade from sanctions to the military blockade in Hormuz Straits, to release his possibility to renew his export of oil in order to get back the frozen the money for Iranians, and to renew his capability to sell it to the Chinese and others, or to open market, in order to go back and to produce missiles and to finance terrorism. And what they are doing right now is of course, the comfortable zone, back in negotiations on the table. They prefer to be in that stage than to be sheltered underground from Israeli strikes. So I think it's very clear that we should focus on the aims of this campaign and not on the trigger, which is the Hormuz, what the Iranians want to achieve right now.
Okay, let me go across to Raja Karthikeyan also. Thank you, sir, for joining me. Yesterday, when we were discussing that the irony is not lost, that this MoU is being signed at the treaty, like Treaty of Versailles, which sowed the seeds of the Second World War, and it got widely reported in the Indian newspapers. Your opening comments, Raja, on the ceasefire that has come into existence, but the first meeting being cancelled.
Thank you, Karthikeyan. Like I said, the deal's been done, but it's not a done deal. And Lebanon does remain the Achilles heel for the implementation of this deal. Now, there are also, while there seems to be growing daylight between the U.S. and Israel. In fact, there's comments reported of Trump saying that the U.S. needs to keep Mr. Netanyahu sane. This is some of the harshest language that we've heard from the U.S., apart from the comments by J.D. Vance, saying that Israel needs to know that the U.S. is the only powerful ally they have in the world. So this is not a great time for U.S.-Israel ties, number one. Number two, while there is immense support in Israel for the war in Lebanon, there are also some people who seem to be doing things that it looks like they want to solve the issue on Palestine too. There's a minister in the Israeli cabinet who wants to create a Palestinian emirate instead of the West Bank being a state of Palestine, to create multiple small emirates there, which would lead to kind of balkanization of Palestine per se. And there will be pushback internationally against this. There is no question. In fact, Israeli officials themselves are questioning, whether this makes sense. So at this point in time, once again, I think the fact that Israel is not a signatory to this deal is the weakest link in the chain.
Okay, time for a short break, but once I'm back, Professor Lucas, my question would be, is Israel safer today? Is West Asian peace durable? And yesterday, these are Raja's words, warring nations don't sign MoU. So why was this terminology MoU chosen for this particular deal? But after a short break.
New Birla Opus Paints protects walls against 99 plus stains. Who'd believe that?
I believe.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I believe it too. New Birla Opus Paints protects your walls from 99 plus stains. That's why it's the new paint for a new era.
आज सम्मान निधि की ये योजना देश के छोटे किसानों के लिए सामाजिक सुरक्षा का एक माध्यम बन गई। एक क्लिक से करोड़ों किसानों के बैंक खाते में सीधे पैसा जमा होता है। दुनिया के विकसित देशों में भी ऐसा संभव नहीं है।
When stories of transformation are rooted in the soil, they reflect a picture of prosperity like this. These are the prosperous and empowered farmers of New India. Behind the success of the country's food providers lies not just their hard work, but also impactful policies of the Government of India focused on farmers' welfare. In 2019, the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme was launched to address the financial needs of the farmers across the country. Under this scheme, farmers receive financial assistance of 6,000 rupees every year, transferred directly into their bank accounts in 3 equal installments. The scheme has already seen the release of its 17th installment, continuing direct benefit support to millions of farmers.
प्रधानमंत्री किसान सम्मान योजना से गरीब किसानों के लिए बहुत ही लाभदायक यह योजना है। किसान सम्मान निधि योजना से मिलने से खाद या बीज सही समय में खरीद पाते हैं। इससे किसानों का बहुत ही भलाई एवं राहत मिल रहा है।
In 12 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's public service, India's agriculture sector has written a new chapter of growth. The vision of seed to market has transformed farmers from being just food providers into self-reliant, empowered entrepreneurs, giving them a new identity in a rapidly changing India.
Professor Lucas, is West Asia a safer place? Is Israel a safer place today? And do you think that has Iran come out stronger, or is it a military defeated regional power?
Of course, it's not a safer place. It hasn't been a safer place for years. And it won't be a safer place for some time. I think our Israeli colleague has pointed to the fact that despite this supposed ceasefire, which has been declared today, that Israel intends to press on with military operations in Lebanon, and indeed it's still pressing on and out with operations in Gaza and in the West Bank. But as responsible analysts, we need to cut through the rhetoric to establish why those operations are going on and why they're likely to continue. There is a wider context here. In October 2023, Hamas carried out a mass killing inside Israel. But Israel then responded disproportionately with more than 73,000 people in Gaza killed since then to establish a zone of occupation, 60% of the territory, and Benjamin Netanyahu wants to make it 70%. That's not a stable situation, especially with Hamas still being present in the other part of Gaza. What Israel is pursuing now, with a disproportionate response to Hezbollah rocket fire, and it was disproportionate, with all due respect to those Israelis who had to leave their homes in northern Israel, that those operations that have killed almost 4,000 Lebanese and displaced 1.2 million since March the 2nd are to try to establish a long-term zone of occupation. And we need to be honest about that. And a long-term zone of occupation in southern Lebanon, even if it's only 10 kilometers deep into the country, will not be stable. There will be people who will challenge that zone of occupation, including Hezbollah. And while those areas are not stable, the rest of the Middle East will not be stable because you'll have interconnections between groups. You have to get Israel to accept the fact that zones of occupation do not safeguard it. And you have to get people to accept the fact that waging war in Iran with an Iranian regime which has punished its own people, killed its own people, does not bring stability to that country.
But there are two questions here. One is the outcome, the real outcome is that IRGC remains consolidated. But the second thing is, when I asked this question to Ruwan Azhar, he said the difference between our foreign policy and Iranian and the foreign policy of a neighboring state is that they do not recognize the existence of Israel as a state.
Look, we could absolutely would be the fact that you would want to get to the point where an Iranian system, hopefully not under the current regime, would recognize Israel, just as you would hope that Israel would get to the point where it would recognize the state of Palestine and not occupy large parts of Palestine. That's what we should be getting to. But what we have to deal with is the practical realities here. We've got an Iranian regime which is trying to survive. But to try to survive, they're going to take advantages of openings and opportunities. And Israel's giving them an opportunity right now. They're able to survive in part because they can say they're the defenders of Lebanon, just as they said they were the defenders of Gaza. There is an irony here. And I've got Iranian friends who were killed by the regime in January when you had nationwide protests that were calling for rights, calling for economic development. The Trump administration and the Netanyahu government, to an extent, have saved this regime. They saved this regime while trying to overthrow it in late February, because the regime could turn around and say, you have to defend your nation. And there is no chance of those mass Iranian protests calling for rights right now, because the regime will turn to them and say, you are serving your U.S. and Israeli masters.
That's a strong point. Yeah, that's a strong point. Itai, do you agree with that? That the intervention has ended up consolidating IRGC?
Of course not, I'm not agreeing from any word from that I heard from Professor Lucas. And if we talk about disproportion, I invite you to come here to Israel and to join me for a journey to see how disproportion translated in the field of people that raped, killed, took a part of little kids and torn them instead in front of their home.
We both acknowledge that. We both acknowledge that.
And about people in the south, in the north of Israel, that after the 7th of October had to leave their homes and factories and fields for almost 1 year because they were afraid and concerned about every day and every hour drones, combat drones, rockets, anti-missiles attacks on their homes, on their cars, on their fields and everything. So I don't know what is disproportion. I don't know each of the states that are talking to us was agreed to accept that such animals are living just away of 1 kilometer or of even less than that from houses of people, of pure civilians that just go to work and live their life. And we were not the one who started this one. We cannot trust, we can ever trust, and when you want to retreat, it's not occupied territories, it's security zone that Israel created in between us and the monsters in Lebanon and the monsters in Gaza and the monsters in Judea and Samaria in order to defend our civilian lives and communities. This is the only way. The fact we attack disproportionately, let's say, Iran, is that because this country that want to eliminate Israel and declare it loudly in everywhere, was only 4, 5, 6 months maximum from creating a nuclear bomb that was ready to be installed on missiles that were directed to Israel. And even without being in nuclear warheads, they already launched missiles of 1 ton on civilians, on cities of Israel and kids. If you call this disproportion from those animals, the terrorists in the south and in the north of Israel, by the umbrella of the terror state of Iran that financed them, weaponed them, and was going to create an umbrella for all these activities by the nuclear umbrella. So this is our struggle, this is our fight for justice, for life, for human rights, for democracy, for the liberal world. And if you don't understand it from Ireland, you have a serious problem.
Okay,
it's not my problem. I'm not an occupier. I'm a savior of people, savior of life, savior of my own people.
Tell me.
Don't even think that Israel would retreat from any land we were from Syria, because we don't trust the Jordanic regime, from Lebanon, because we cannot trust, and the Lebanese government as well is not trust and cannot do the job in order to save Lebanon from Hezbollah, Lebanon from Iran. We are with them. We are in a negotiation with the Lebanese government that together with us want to get rid from this evil axis of Iran. And thanks God, there are no more in Syria. Thank God we are in southern Lebanon. Thank God Iran is weaker. The whole axis is weaker than it was 1 and 2 years ago. And we will continue until the end of this regime and its proxies doing this terrorism. We are doing it for Israeli safety, not for other reasons. We are not imperialists. We don't want to occupy anybody. We don't want to control anybody. And the Palestinian state solution doesn't connect anything that no connection to what is going on with the Hezbollah, with the Houthis, with Iran, with the militias in Iraq, with Syria, whatever. It's nothing to do with that. It's wanted a solution. The Iranians never demanded anything to Israel to go out of the territories because it doesn't care. It's a religious war against the Jewish state, against the Zionist state, and you should understand this.
Okay. Radha Karthikeyan, would the response of the Israeli state be the same in absence of Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yes, I think it's an important question whether, as Mr. Mediana said, what happened in October 2023 was a gruesome attack, the worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. This is undoubtable. But should the people who were in power at that time be the same people prosecuting the aftermath? Because is there accountability for what happened in October 2023? I think that is a question. Israel is going to have elections this year, and I believe the voters of Israel will demand answers to that. Because those people who endured the horrors of the hostages, the hostages, what they endured, I'm sure their families too, even though, and there are many who lost their lives, would want justice. The fact what happened, how could such a security lapse happen, and is Israel safer today? That it will never happen again. And because what we see now is because it's wartime, consistently this war. Many of the you can't really hold the kind of inquiries you would normally have at the end of a war because the war is continuing. So that I think is a question, and the fact that there are some people in the cabinet, I don't know if they're doing a service to their own country, and I'm just saying this based on what we're reading in terms of their statements. There were 4 IDF soldiers who were killed. Again, every soldier's loss is a loss, and for a country like Israel, it matters a lot. But when a statement is made that now Lebanon must burn, I think this in international capitals. It is not perceived to be helpful at a time when there is a peace agreement being signed or being negotiated at least for the entire region.
Absolutely. Professor Lucas, I have run short of time, but I know you wanted to come in. I can give 1 minute to you, sir.
We all agree that the actions of Hamas were a war crime, were reprehensible, were a mass killing. We all agree that the Iranian regime has committed crimes against us all people. We all agree that Hezbollah has fired on Israel. But I think we could also all agree that an eye for an eye leaves everyone blind. And what we're in the middle of right now is the fact that even if it is in the name of defending itself, you do have an Israel, and we've just heard our Israeli colleagues say that they will continue and extend these attacks. They will extend them in Gaza if they need to. They will extend them in the West Bank. They will extend them in Syria, even though the Assad regime has fallen, if they consider they would want to. And yes, this is occupation. Now, if you want to call it a security zone, it's fine, but it's occupation. And I'll just remind everyone, we're almost 60 years since Israel established zones of occupation after the 1967 war. And are we safer because of that?
Absolutely. I thank all of you. I've really run short of time. It's okay, if I take the closing. It's okay, if I take the closing comment from Professor Lucas. Fair game.
It's always okay. I respect everybody, every opinion.
Okay.
And I said what I said. I think it's clear.
Okay. Thank you. I thank all of you for joining me. A very, very nice, very riveting conversation. But to my viewers, please don't go away because I have 1.2, and 1.2 is about why monsoon is stalled in India. And what are those 5 reasons that the rain is not happening?